All right, welcome to the South Dakota House of Representatives. We have back with us the good Reverend Emily Munger, who's going to represent the Pier 4 Peer Ministerial Association and lead us in prayer. And then our very own Representative Bruner's daughter, Cameron Bruner, is then going to lead us into the pledge.
On this Ash Wednesday, I invite you into a reflective poem regarding the inherent worth of all humankind. Would you pray with me? All those days you felt like dust, like dirt, as if all you had to do was turn your face toward the wind and be scattered to the four corners, or swept away by the smallest breath as insubstantial. Did you not know what the Holy One can do with dust? This is the day we freely say we are scorched. This is the hour we are marked by what has been through the burning. This is the moment we ask for the blessing that lives within the ancient ashes that makes its home inside the soil of this sacred earth. So let us be marked. Not for sorrow, and let us be marked not for shame. Let us be marked not for false humility or for thinking we are less than we are, but for claiming what God can do within the dust, within the dirt, within the stuff of which the world is made, and the stars that blaze in our bones, and the galaxies that spiral inside the smudge we bear. Amen. Words from Jan Richardson.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looks like Cameron's got some relatives up here. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Allers, Anderson, Bartles, Barthel, Bartling, Beal, Bordeaux, Bruner, Campbell, Carson, Chase, Clark, Conzett, Denner, Diedrich, DeSanto, Duval, Freimuller, Glanzer, Goodwin, Gosh, Greenfield, Haugard, Howley, Heineman, Holmes, Howard, Hunhoff, Jameson, Jensen, Johns, Johnson, Kaiser, Carr, Ketwig, Lake, Latterell, Lesmeister, Livermont, Lust, Marty, May, McClary, McPherson, Mills, Otten, Peterson, Kent, Peterson, Sioux, Pischke, Quam, Rasmussen, Reed, Roden, Ring, Rounds, Rosem, Schaefer, Shanefish, Smith, Soley, Steinhauer, Stevens, Tolson, Turbeville, Wheezy, Willardson, Wismer, York, Zickman, and Speaker Mickerson. Mr. Speaker, a quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Approval of the journal.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Chief Clerk of the House has had under consideration the House Journal of the 22nd day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move the adoption of the report. Respectfully submitted, G. Mark Mickelson, Chair.
All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Reports of standing committees. We're not ready. We're going to go ahead and proceed to messages. Someone asked for my attention. Representative Shane Fish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Personal privilege.
Granted.
On behalf of Representative Peterson and myself, I'd like to welcome the Trip Delmont High School government class with their teachers Amy Brown and Christian Hildebrand.
Please welcome them. Give us a wave, guys. There was one aggressive one that stood up.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bills 1016 and 1033, which have been amended by the Senate, and your concurrence in the amendments is respectfully requested. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bill number 1074, which has passed the Senate without change. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to transmit herewith Senate Bills 2465, 99, and 212, which have passed the Senate, and your favorable consideration is respectfully requested. Respectfully, Kay Johnson, Secretary.
We'll go ahead and go to motions and resolutions.
Yesterday, Representative Gosch announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1216 lost. Representative Gosch moved that the House do now reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1216 lost, and that it be placed on the top of today's calendar.
Discussion on that motion. Representative Gosch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and fine members of the body. I ask that you please support this reconsideration. I was able to answer some of the questions of constitutionality that some of the members have had about this particular bill, plus we've got more members back here today. So again, I'd like to ask for your favorable vote on this reconsideration. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question for the body is Representative Gosch's motion to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1216 lost and to place on the top of today's calendar. All those members in favor shall vote yes. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Yes, Representative Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an introduction. I have the privilege of introducing some folks from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, but thanks to the work of organizations like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, we know that it's preventable. In South Dakota, an individual is 4 times more likely to die by suicide than by homicide. Today is the first time advocates from AFSP are visiting our state capitol. These volunteer advocates are here to support laws and policies related to mental health and suicide prevention. Please join with me and welcome members of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Stand up, folks, if you're up there.
Please give them a round of applause.
Jenner Gotad.
Go ahead and clean up this vote, please. We're looking for Representative Rosen, DeSanto, and Johnson.
DeSanto's an aye. Representative John. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 42 and nays 24, excused 4.
The motion to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1216 lost and to place at the top of today's calendar, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Okay, does anyone have an announcement? You want to save it for a vote? Go ahead. Save it. Okay.
Yesterday, Representative Latterell announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which 1277 passed.
Representative Latterall has given notice that he does not wish to make that motion. Does any other member wish to make the motion? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item of business.
Yesterday, Representative Hawley announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1230 lost. Representative Hawley moved that the House do now reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1230 lost, and that it be placed on today's calendar behind House Bill 1216.
Remarks on that motion. Representative Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just real quick, 1230 was the texting, changing it to primary. There were some concerns on the floor about what we were charging for it. I have a amendment on your desk, so I'd like you to reconsider that, please. Thank you.
Further remarks on that motion? Seeing none, the question before the body is Representative Hawley's motion to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1230 lost and to place the second item of business on today's calendar. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Yep, Representative Mills.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Representative Holly and Representative Reed, I want to welcome in the yellow shirts in the back here, Tricia Visker and
Derek
a
votes
contingency from Advance from Brookings. Please help me welcome them.
Nice to have you with us today. There's one of them, I spotted one hiding up here in a yellow shirt too, in case you missed him. Yep, Representative Glanzer.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
On behalf of Representative Chase and myself from District 22, we have the Lake Preston Senior Government class sitting right up here with their teacher, Jordan Solberg. Please welcome.
Representative DeSanto, Bartles, and York. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 38, nays 28, excused 4.
Representative Hawley's motion to reconsider the vote by House Bill 1230, which lost yesterday, into place as the second item on today's calendar, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Do we want to go to consideration of committee reports? No. Motion still.
Representative Quam moved that the following bills be deferred. House Bill 1250 to Tuesday, February 20th, the 25th legislative day, and House Bill 1234 to Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, the 26th legislative day.
1077 to the top. You're going to do that separate. Okay. Okay. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Representative Quam moved that House Bill 1007 be placed to precede House Bill 1140 on today's calendar.
All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Representative Quam moved that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1 p.m. on Thursday, February 15th, 2018, the 24th legislative day.
All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consideration of reports of committees.
Representative Quam moved that the reports of the standing committees on Health and Human Services on Senate Bill 164, as found on page 416 of the House Journal, be adopted.
All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. First reading of Senate bills. Speaker assigns Senate Bills 24 and 212 to State Affairs and Senate Bills 65 and 99 to Judiciary. Consent calendar.
House Bill 1248, an act to revise certain provisions regarding filing and recording secured transaction records with the Office of the Secretary of State. House Bill 1161, an act to revise certain references to the International Building Code. House Bill 1163, an act to revise certain provisions regarding municipal publication deadlines. House Bill 1168, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the abandonment or dissolution of television translator districts. House Bill 1169, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the commissioner form of municipal government, and House Bill 1183, an act to revise the deadline for the certification of certain municipal ballot language to the county auditor.
Any questions on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all the bills on the consent calendar, having had that second reading, are up for consideration. Then that is the question before the body. All those members in favor of the consent calendar shall vote yes. All those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Anderson
today,
votes aye.
behind the in the Speaker's lobby and in the Senate lobby, the League of Women Voters of South Dakota is celebrating their 98th anniversary of the founding of the League. They are the sponsor of those treats. They're a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. It influences public policy through education and advocacy. It was formed 6 months before the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, which gave women the right to vote. Would you please welcome the League of Women Voters to the House chamber today? And please give us a wave for those of you who are here.
Representatives Hawley, Carr, and Lattarell. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote. Okay, we had a computer malfunction. We lost the vote. The question before the body is the same thing you just voted on, the consent calendar. All those members in favor vote yes, those opposed no. Please vote. All right. All right, I think,
It's open. It's open.
hey, how did Representative Gosh's bill end up on the consent calendar anyway? The voting machine's unlocked and you do need to vote on the consent calendar. Well, Representative, yep, Peterson, Sue, Allers, Lattarell. Representative Allers, can you hear us? There we go.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were 63 yeas, 3 nays, and 4 excused.
The consent calendar, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. We are probably to the second reading of House bills.
Motion to pass. House Bill 1216, an act to provide for limits on certain out-of-state contributions to ballot question committees.
All right. House Bill 1216, having had its second reading and been placed on the calendar pursuant to a reconsideration motion, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Out of respect of everybody's time here, we had a good debate on this yesterday, so I just ask you guys to please vote green. It's the right thing to do for South Dakota. Thanks.
Further remarks? Further remarks? Representative Bartling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will once again encourage the body to vote no on this. I think it's, number one, a hindrance to the process, and I do question the legality and the constitutionality, so I do hope that you will vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Representative Lust.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I won't revisit the constitutionality issue from yesterday. I think that was pretty well debated. I'll just say this. What this bill does is protects, it seeks to protect South Dakota citizens from speech that we don't like. And as a member of the party of personal responsibility, I find that troubling, that we need to protect people from certain speech. I don't think we need to do that. I think our citizens are savvy enough to sort through the various sources of speech and make a decision for their own. We don't need them. They don't need us to protect them from that. So I would encourage your no vote.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks. Question before the body is final passage. House Bill 1216. All those members in favor will vote yes. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Eilers votes aye. Representative Schaefer. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 36, nays 30, and excused 4.
House Bill 1216 having received just barely the majority declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. Please.
House Bill 1230, an act to provide for the primary enforcement of the law prohibiting certain electronic communications while operating a motor vehicle and to revise the penalty for a violation of that law.
All right, House Bill 1230, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have Amendment 1230AA at the desk, and it's been distributed.
And you wish to move it at this
I'd
time?
like to move it at this time.
Go ahead and discuss the amendment in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Real simple amendment. Our discussions yesterday revolved around the concern about a Class 2 misdemeanor and what that penalty meant. So this amendment strikes the Class 2, takes it back to the original statute, and says it's a $100 petty offense. But what it does keep in there still is it's a primary. And I think the most important thing here is that it's considered a primary, so we can deter these. So please support the motion and support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. The question before the body is the amendment, 1230AA. Further remarks? Seeing none, all those members in favor of adopting, did someone say Mr. Speaker? No? Okay, so the question before the body is adoption of amendment 1230AA. All those members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? No. That motion does carry. 1230 is amended. Further remarks? Seeing none. The question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1230 as amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 40, nays 26, excused 4.
House Bill 1230 as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on that title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1007, an act to require any initiated measure to embrace only one subject.
House Bill 1007, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Representative Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I'll give you a little history on this first. This bill, 1007, is a hog house bill. We had it in State Affairs, and that bill was meant to establish a committee that would review initiated measures and constitutional amendments and get more information out, which I think we all agree is a good thing. As we talked about it, it was a great idea in theory, but practically speaking, we had a lot of issues. Who would be on it? When would they meet? How long would it take? How many meetings would they have? Do you have to have more than one in peer? And so in the end, in theory, it was a great idea, but it wasn't practical. Good ideas don't always come directly from a committee, so this idea, and you may hear that today, that this idea didn't come out of the committee, and that is true, but it's a result of that discussion. When you start talking about these things and do idea sharing, that's where all of a sudden the light came on, and I thought, you know what? If we could just have initiated measures, have a single subject, just like we do in bills on the floor, and that it would have to be so stated so that each would be prepared and distinguished so it could be voted upon separately, that may take care of the very problem that we're all facing with how do we make it simple for the voters, or simpler so that we're not getting 5 subject bills and 36 pages, but also to help those people that want to bring initiatives to save them from litigation. So basically what this does is clarify in statute that very simply, no initiated measure may embrace more than one subject, and if it is in the same election with more than one subject, it shall be so prepared to distinguish it. I'd like to pass it that way, but I do have an amendment, Mr. Speaker. Can I talk about that amendment?
We'll go ahead and grant you that latitude. We'll let Representative Peterson, you want to make?
Yeah, I've got an amendment at the desk, 1007 WB.
Is there a second? Okay, 1007 WB. Representative Rosen, go ahead and continue.
Well, here's the deal. If we pass this as is, as of July 1, 2018, it would take effect. So it would impact those initiatives that have already been turned into the Secretary of State. My intent is not to cause an issue with that. I guess in some respects you'd like to have those bills or those initiated measures be one topic, because in statute it's just not very clear at this point. But this amendment simply says it will take effect January 1 of 2019. So I'll leave it to you to determine whether you would like to pass that amendment or not.
Very good. We'll go ahead and consider the question for the body, the motion to amend, 1007 WB. Further remarks on that motion to amend? Seeing none, the question before the body is adoption of Amendment 1007 WB. All those members in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. That motion does carry. Further remarks, 1007 as amended. Representative Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I appreciate the former speaker coming forward with the hog house and the one subject, because that's been a major discussion since I am 22, in all honesty. and I do appreciate this amendment here, so it clarifies it won't affect this year. The concern I had in committee, as we talked more, it was brought up, what does one, you say if it's one topic, what does, their comment was made, well, IM-22 could be considered one topic potentially. And as we had further discussion, it was said, well, this will go to court and the court will decide. And then somebody else said, yeah, this probably will be in court, so we can determine what that means. I have a problem with legislation that we aren't clear enough. When people who are passing it in committee thinks it's headed to court, why are we passing it? That's only, I don't have any problem with the intent of the bill and what it's wanted to do, but I have a problem if it isn't clear enough that we can decide ourselves it's not headed to court, why would we want to pass that? So I think I'm going to vote no on this, and we need to look for a little bit better at how we can word this. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Rosen, you want closing remarks?
Thank you. Well, I would point out that the prior speaker really liked this idea when I first presented it to him when it went into State Affairs, but something happened between then and now. This, and I mean, I'm open if you can make it clear, but I think at this point it is not clear in statute that it should be one subject and it should be in the title, and I think that's critical to our process and transparency for our process. We currently could end up in litigation, which we would have on IM-22 had we not killed it last year, but I do think that this would have helped us, saved us a fair amount of consternation if it's very clear that it's one subject and should be presented as such. Appreciate your support. Thank you.
Seeing no further remarks, question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1007 as amended. All those members in favor, please will vote yes. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Roden.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members of the body. And I would ask for your indulgence. I know it's a little unorthodox, but I wanted to take the opportunity to try and make up for some of my transgressions in the past.
Representative Roden, we are on a schedule here.
I will be as brief as possible. My wife was passing through here today, and she stopped in. Of course, I couldn't get her out on the floor. She's out in the lobby. But I would ask.
Well, wait a minute.
Maybe
Let's get her on in here. We got to get a look at her.
I would solicit some help from the majority leader.
Sergeant at Arms, can you assist?
See, ladies and gentlemen of the House, Sandy and I have been married for 36 years, 23 weeks, and 4 days. And I know you might find it hard to believe, but many of those years have ticked by without me recognizing what she puts up with in me, because I'm not always the kind, gentle, meek, soft-spoken person that you see on this floor. So, come here. I wanted to officially say thank you to my wife for 36 years and many years without recognition on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day.
Representative Carr. Representative Carr. Take some notes.
Representative Sue Peterson, Wheezy, and York. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 57, nays 9, and excused 4.
House Bill 1007, as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1140, an act to revise certain provisions regarding access to public water.
House Bill 1140 having had second reading is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Otten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. I have an amendment,
Very good.
1140 KA, and I would like to move it at this time.
And it's been distributed.
It has.
Go ahead and discuss the amendment and the bill.
Thank you. If it pleases the Speaker, if we could deal with the amendment, clean the bill up a little bit, and then go on from there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're asking for us to vote on the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so Representative Otten's request is that we just put the amendment on the bill and then debate the bill as amended. Anyone want to discuss that amendment? Seeing, go ahead.
I would like to discuss the amendment, so
Go ahead.
everybody's got a fair understanding. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, fellow members. 1140 was up in State and Fairs a week ago, and we had a really good hearing up there. Worked with the good legislator from Platt a little bit, and we added, if you look at the bill, we had an amendment that added in, or waters embracing an area of not less than 40 acres. So that was an amendment in committee, and that was a friendly amendment. So what my amendment does is strike what is after that are open to the public for recreational use on page 1, line 7, and page 2, line 5 and 6. And the good representative from Pennington County had a question about the word abandonment on page 2, line 6, and he was correct that there is not a definition in state law as it pertains to abandonment in roads. So we are looking to strike that also. That is what the amendment does.
Further remarks on the motion to amend 1140 KA? Seeing none, the question before the body is passage of Amendment 1140 KA. All those members in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. We're now on 1140 as amended. Further remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, I bring 1140 to you today for two reasons, I guess. One, I have seen an issue with roads being vacated throughout the state, and it's a direct response to a Supreme Court decision last year. I have getting back to point one, I have a handout at your desk that talks or shows you some roads that have been vacated. The first page is 2014, and this by no means is a comprehensive list that have been roads that have been vacated. And then the second page is some new ones in 2017, I believe. I believe that, not all of these roads have been vacated for the right reasons. There was a Supreme Court hearing decision last year that talked about this, and as you will see, I have the one area marked 28 overturned. Those were overturned last year by the state Supreme Court and reprimanded back for hearing. The reason why I feel we need to have this in statute is if you look at House Bill 1140, Statute 313-61 says, notwithstanding any other provisions of this chapter, no county or township may vacate a highway which provides access to public lands. Well, that was passed back in 1989. And the reason it was passed is because the state had seen that there was an issue of some section lines being vacated to public lands. Well, I see the same thing today. And the Supreme Court brings this up also in the decision last year, and this is reading right out of the decision. If the legislature had meant 3136 to forbid a vacation that would limit access to a public resource, it could have easily said so. For example, the legislature has done just that in regards to public lands. 31-36, notwithstanding any other provisions of Chapter 31.3, no county or township may vacate a highway which provides access to public lands. And they are unable to locate a corresponding statute prescribed to the vacation highways. So I bring it for that reason. I have a little bit more, and I will address that later, but this bill here just prevents vacating of roads, or the section lines. It does not do anything about closing them or removing the ability of the townships to list them as no maintenance or any of those things. All of those section lines are still open, They can still do whatever they need to do at a township or county level. It just says that they can't vacate them and puts it in line with what we
Jensen
already
yields.
do to public lands. I will stand by for some questions and provide a little bit more in rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? See no further remarks. Question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1140 is amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote. Is the doctor of the day here? Where? Doctor of the Day is in the back waving at us. Please help me welcome Mary Jo Olson. She is sponsored by the State Medical Association.
York votes
She's
aye.
a family medicine physician from Vermillion. She received her undergraduate degree from SDSU in 1993 and her medical degree from USD in 1997. She completed her residency in Sioux Falls with the family medicine program in 2000. She enjoys her practice of delivering babies and treating entire families in Vermillion. She's a member of the American Medical Association and the State Medical Association and an alternate counselor for the Council of Physicians. Please welcome Mary Jo Olson. Thank you for being with us.
Representative Howard, Representative Rasmussen.
Representative Tolson?
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we're honored to have the Warner High School, and we're honored to have Carter and Bess here. Would you please stand? Carter was our page last week, and Bess will be next week. And then we want to welcome Matt Mackner in the high school senior class from Warner. So would you please stand?
Please welcome Warner High School, folks.
Thank you. And that's from Representative Greenfield also, so thank you.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 57, nays 9, and excused 4.
House Bill 1140 as amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. Representative Bartling.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Would you all stand up and join me today? We want to look at the camera and give our shout out to the members of our body who aren't with us today. If you join me and everyone take a look at the camera, and we'll have just a quick message. Today we continue to miss Karn Soley and Sean McPherson, and we're also missing Chip Campbell, who's had surgery. We want to give them a shout out from the House. We don't know how soon you might be able to join us back here, but we want to let you know that you're in our thoughts and our prayers, and we love and we miss you. We want to wish you a very happy Valentine's Day, and we look forward to seeing you back here. If you'd want to give a wave to them and help me join them in saying, come back soon.
House Bill 1246, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the consumption of alcoholic beverages by passengers aboard vehicles operated by licensed carriers.
House Bill 1146, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Ketwig.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 1146 is simply fixing an issue that was brought to my attention last year. Last year, I was approached by some guys who own the Sippin' Cycles or the pedal pubs in Rapid City and in Sioux Falls, and they were looking to try and allow customers of theirs to bring their alcohol or beer onto their cycles and to not have to sell it to them once they got there. That bill died, as many do here, and it was for good reason, because right after that bill went down, I started to get phone calls and emails from limousine drivers or companies and from party bus companies saying, "Gal, we fall into that same category. We'd sure like you to bring that back." And so here we are again this year. We've brought it back. This summer, I had the pleasure of coming to a bunch of meetings with the Department of Revenue and members of the industry, and having to do with the rewrite of some liquor laws and doing that. And this was one of the topics that we discussed. And through that, this bill was produced, and so I was happy to carry it and bring it here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you what this does. It simply allows carrier license holders, so people who own a license that allows someone else to drink in their vehicle, in their conveyance, a party bus, a limousine, or on a sip-and cycle or a pedal pub, it allows them to bring their own alcohol on and not have to buy it from the carrier licensee. This bill does three very important things, or doesn't do three very important things, I apologize. And that is, it doesn't relieve the carrier licensee holder of carding and making sure that everyone on that conveyance is 21 when they're drinking. It doesn't allow them to ignore the statutes that say you can't overserve. I mean, they cannot allow someone to get that intoxicated. They still have to follow the same requirements as any other license holder. And it also ensures that they understand and that they know they can't allow someone to get off their conveyance with an open container. They can't allow someone to go into another licensed establishment with an open container, which would be a violation of South Dakota code. So this bill went through. I had one opponent at the time. We amended the bill during committee and took care of the concerns of the retailers and what they wanted to see to ensure that the carrier licensees knew they still had to enforce those other three provisions. So I think we've come to a good spot on this bill, and I hope I can get a green vote this time around.
Further remarks, House Bill 1146, Representative Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to echo some of the things the former representative said. It's a good bill, and it's long needed. It sets forth a clear format and lets everybody know exactly what the rules are. So please vote green.
Oh, you do? No, we can put her on the top. Oh, he doesn't. He's afraid. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1146. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Say, we had a mistake up here. We included House Bill 1250 in a motion to defer earlier, and that was in error on my part. And so I apologize to the prime sponsor. We can revert to order of business number 8 and put that back on today's calendar, if we'd like to do that. It's my mistake. I kind of feel like we should. Representative Heineman, would that be acceptable? Okay. There being no objection, we're going to revert to order of business number 8, motions and resolutions. Representative Heineman moves that we place House Bill 1250 as the next item of business for today on today's calendar. Is there a second? All those members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Representative DeSanto.
I'd like to move a 517, or no, excuse me, 7-7.
7-7.
Yes, sir.
Is that an objection to changing the order of the, well, let's have a look. We'll be at ease. We're in the middle of a vote, so we're going to wrap this vote up, and then we'll get back to this pending objection.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64, nay 2, excused 4.
House Bill 1146, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed.
707. Okay.
Oh, that's what she's doing?
Yes, sir.
Yep, so we went back, okay, I was in the middle of a vote, I got a little bit ahead of myself, okay? There being no objection, we are going to revert to order of business number 8, motions and resolutions. All right, I'm going to redo that motion. Representative Heineman moves that we place House Bill 1250 at the top of the remaining calendar for today's House bills. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. That motion does carry. All right, Representative DeSanto, is your seatmate rubbing off on you?
Yes, sir. I'm moving Joint Rule 7-7 on House Bill 1287 WA.
All right, I have a feeling that's a smoke out. What was that bill number, Representative DeSanto?
1287.
Okay, this is a motion to smoke a bill out of a committee pursuant to Rule 7-7. Is Representative DeSanto supported in her motion for a smoke out? What's the point? State your point.
Discussion.
Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and discuss the motion.
This thing. Sorry. Trying to step back on. I kind of.
All right, we are in discussion. Each house may by motion order its committees to deliver. If the motion is supported, okay. Representative DeSanto, go ahead and
Yes, sir.
we'll open up a debate on your motion pursuant to Rule 7-7.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate that. 1287 was heard in House Commerce this morning. The bill ended up with a tie of a 6-6 vote. Unfortunately, one of the members of the committee was out for an hour's worth of testimony that we provided, speaking on another bill. So he was unfortunately not able to hear the hour's worth of testimony. Upon his return to the committee, he cast a nay vote, which made the bill die 7-6 after not having an opportunity to hear anything regarding the bill. Is that what
Further remarks on that motion?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm going to ask you to resist this motion. Obviously, they probably have the 24 votes to do it, but I'm just going to tell you what really happened up there in the House Commerce Committee this morning. We spent 2 hours on a bill that was hogged this morning without any prior notice to the chair or the committee members. 2-page, right, even before the sponsor started speaking, this hadn't been delivered to us yet. So we get the 2-page amendment to the bill as the proponent started their testimony. This is a long bill. We gave it a 2-hour discussion. Yes, we were short a member. We waited for the member to come back or we'd still be up there voting. When the member came back, they took note of the situation and made that deciding vote, that 7th vote to kill the bill. This is the first, well, luckily some other members of the body came up and approached me on this here today, so I had a little heads up this smokeout was coming. But this isn't the way I operate. I'm kind of palms up. I talk to people before I do a smokeout or before I do an amendment on their bill. For that reason, I'm going to ask you to stay seated on this motion to smoke out. Thank you.
Yeah, Representative Latterell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to speak briefly to the comment on the Hog House. This particular bill, which is a measure that will possibly decrease health care costs by 20%,
Go ahead and state your point.
He's getting into the merits of the bill.
Okay, I hadn't heard that yet, but I'll pay close attention. Go ahead, Representative Ladder. I'll be mindful of that point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just on the topic I was speaking on. But as far as the amendment goes, the previous speaker said that this was a hog house amendment not seen by the committee. In actuality, it was just 3 minor changes that LRC recommended for the style and form be done as a hog house. It was extremely similar to the existing bill. It was not a full hog house of the bill.
Well, all right. Thank you for staying out of the merits of whatever is contained in this bill. All right. Further remarks on this motion? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I'd like to point out that the prime sponsor of this bill has mentioned that the 13th member of that committee was out of the room for an hour. I'd like to point out that the prime sponsor of this bill came in after that 13th member showed up in committee, took that member out of the committee for 10 minutes, one-on-one. That committee member came back into the room and voted nay. I think that's critical information. Thank you.
All right. Way to stay to the process. Further remarks?
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, closing remarks, Representative DeSanto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the prior speaker is correct that when the 13th member did arrive, I did talk to him for a few minutes in the hallway to let him know that what was going on. He was unaware of the situation inside the room. He had no idea what bill they were on, what the vote was, or anything, so I did bring him up to speed on that for a couple minutes before he entered the room, that it was a tied vote. And so that is in fact true. But I'm asking for people to stand because I believe that when you have one member, when you have a 6-6 vote, you have one member that misses, not what I can fill him in a couple minutes in the hallway, but misses a couple hours worth of testimony, casts the deciding vote on a 6-6 vote, as well as the fact that lots of the information that was actually, can I get into that? I don't think, I'm not. Some of the information that was provided in testimony was inaccurate and incorrect, and I would like to get a chance to clarify that as well.
Okay. Seeing no further remarks, the request is for a motion pursuant to Rule 7.7. Pursuant to our rules, she needs to be supported by 1/3 of the members-elect. All those members in favor of Representative DeSantos to smoke this bill out, please stand. I got 26. She is supported. So pursuant to Rule 7.7, the committee will go ahead and meet and send that bill back to this floor. Okay? Doesn't need to be today. We got time. Okay? Whatever your next meeting is. You want to do that today? Representative Rounds, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I do believe by rule this should be done today.
Okay. You can do that if you want it to speed things up. If you find that rule, let me know. Okay? Otherwise, you just need to report, you need to meet and report that bill to this floor at some point before crossover day so we can calendar the bill. Okay? All right. Next item of business. Whoa. Don't ever revert back to order of business number 8. A word for the wise. And that was all my fault. All right. That's my second mistake. It's getting kind of late in session. All right. So, Representative Pischke. All right, what's next? We're moving on. We're moving on. Get the next bill out. I think we're on 1278.
House Bill 1278, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the extradition of fugitives by Indian tribes.
Oh, wait. Whoa. I forgot, my fault. We need to go to 1250. We keep trying to skip that bill, don't we, Representative Heineman? That was our original reason to revert. My bad. We'll just put it on the, put it up. I'll say it. Thank you. That's called, Representative Pischke, that's called being helpful.
Title 1250? Okay.
Okay,
House-
we will now proceed back to order of business number 13, second reading of House bills.
House Bill number 1250, an act to revise certain provisions relating to the sale and possession of tobacco products.
House Bill 1250, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate, finally. Are there any remarks? Representative Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the body. I don't know if anyone listened to the testimony for House Bill 1250 in committee. I did disclose that I normally do not like more restrictions on my life, but what compelled me to consider this bill was the statistics that are in front of you. Most of you have had Time for Tobacco 21 South Dakota. I'm not sure if anybody, it's been on your desk a couple times. But this bill, simply put, raises the age of tobacco purchasing from 18 to 21. Here's why. If you look at that handout, a couple of things really are quite compelling. First of all, 90% of people who buy tobacco for minors are 18 to 20 years of age, meaning they're purchasers that are very close to the high school age. Second thing, every state that's raised the age to 21, the smoking rate for that 15 to 17-year-olds has dropped by 25%. That is a pretty amazing fact. I'll go through just a couple short things on the bill so it'll help provide some clarity. You can see in the first page, basically, we've changed 18 to 21 purchase process. Second page, added 21 in there. The important thing on section 2 is we repealed that, or offered to repeal that. And the reasoning is we found, or at least the merchants have told us and law enforcement, that it's difficult to have a merchant detain a minor when they're purchasing tobacco. So it wasn't a very realistic part of the process of enforcement. And so that section was struck. And if you'll see in section 3, what we changed it to say is a merchant may conspicuously post a notice rather than shall. So it took the onus off of those that were reluctant to retain a minor without any really very good direction. It does, however, allow a merchant to conspicuously post a notice, and then they can detain someone if they so choose. And then you'll go through a couple other things. Age of 21 has changed. So that, in essence, is really what the bill does. I see the effects of tobacco every day in my office, especially smokeless. We rarely talk about smokeless. There's more additives in smokeless because it's incorporated in the vascular system much more quickly in the mouth. It's easier to get the nicotine high with smokeless tobacco. It gets in the bloodstream much quicker than smoking. Obviously, it seems like it's easier to hide, so the enforcement of it is more difficult to see. It's almost become more acceptable. Please consider raising the age to purchase tobacco to 21. It's predicted to reduce the smoking rate by 12%. I think we need to do this for our kids. Again, vote yes for 1250. Thank you.
Further remarks, Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, we just heard a lot of good, compelling reasons why freedom for an 18, 19, and 20-year-old is a bad thing. And to me, that this issue is very black and white. To me, there's a solid line down there. If I live in a free country, do I have the freedom to make a decision that is bad for me? Do I have that freedom in America? Do I have that freedom in South Dakota? Or are you going to take that away from me and other adults? When I think about the police aspect of this, I just think about that first YouTube video that's going to go viral of some cop writing tickets to soldiers after a National Guard meeting for possession of tobacco. Adults who have wrote a blank check to the government up to including their life for freedom. And now you won't let them have a can of dip or a cigarette. It's a individual responsibility and freedom. If you're against those things, vote for this, I guess. Thank you.
Yep. Representative York.
My fine friend from Brown County talks about freedom. Well, I would like to have the freedom then to pay for the medical bills for just those who I choose. My tax dollar goes to pay. We've got a fiscal statement in front of us. That fiscal statement does not say one thing about how we're going to save on health care costs. We've already approved a bill that pays for Dr. Heinemann's dental expenses when he works on one of these folks that don't have insurance for themselves and they've ruined their teeth and their mouth by smoking and chewing. I don't really want to pay for that anymore. There's one bonus to this. If we can stop a few 18-year-olds from starting to smoke, that would be just great with me. But the rest of it is just plain dollars and cents and common sense. I would have it so that you have to produce your own insurance card, your own self-paid insurance card, before anybody could buy cigarettes. To me, that would be a good bill. Please vote yes on this.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I'm concerned about this attempt at social engineering by those who do not respect the rights and responsibilities our society vests in our citizens when they become 18. After World War II, President Eisenhower used his 1954 State of the Union address to call for 18-year-olds to have the right to vote. Having commanded the troops in the war, he understood how unfair it was to those who had served our country and defended our liberties while being denied this fundamental right. In 1971, the 26th Amendment to the United States Constitution granted the full rights of citizenship to 18-year-olds. In addition to the right to vote and serve in the military, our laws provide 18-year-olds the right to marry and divorce and make decisions about medical treatment, the responsibilities to pay taxes and be tried as adults if accused of a crime also come with turning 18. I cannot support legislation that denies the right to purchase a legal product to those who otherwise treat it as an adult. Those who advocate that this legislation would protect those under 18 from tobacco use ignore the U.S. Centers for Disease Control surveys from 2011 to 2014, which provide evidence that 4 times as many high school students drink alcohol as smoke cigarettes. The fact that the legal age to purchase and consume alcohol is 21 everywhere in the country, while the legal age to purchase tobacco is 18 in most of the country, demonstrates this legislation will not achieve its stated purpose. Please vote red.
Representative May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, geez, what a great piece of legislation this would be for my store, because the way I read it, the state's going to move it up to 21, and what about the reservations? So is everybody going to come to the reservations then to buy their tobacco? So I don't know. I might have to think about this one for a little bit. But I want to address the good representative from Cottington County on the health care part of it, because if we're going to go down that road, then we need to go down the road of obesity. We need to go down the road of diabetic. We need to go down all those other roads, just like New York and California are doing. You can't have too big of a soda. You can't eat too many potato chips. You can't do this. You can't do that. The fact of the matter is, this is a free country. You might not agree with it. That is not, you can have that opinion, but you cannot force that opinion on free people. But if you want to support my store, we might have to think this one through for a little bit longer.
Further remarks? Representative Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the sponsor.
Go ahead and state your question.
I want to make sure I understand when I read the bill that it is only for the purchase of the product and sale of the product, not for the possession and use of. Is that correct?
Representative Heineman.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that is correct, not for possession. We struck that.
So I have a follow-up if you'd care to answer. In the states that you quote, they have a reduction, I believe you said 17% or whatever the percent was. Did they also only restrict the sale, or did they restrict sale, use, and possession?
Representative Heineman.
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the issue here is freedom and what is an adult. We say an 18-year-old can vote for us. We run for election here this spring. We're going to ask all the 18 to 21-year-olds to give us a vote. But are we going to tell them at that time, oh, by the way, you're not mature enough to have tobacco? Is that what we're going to say, or do we have the guts to say that? I'd like your vote, 18 to 21-year-old, but you're not a man enough or a woman enough to decide on cigarettes or tobacco. You're old enough to join the military. You're old enough to get married. You're old enough to choose a college or vo-tech you wanted to go to. You could purchase a shotgun, a rifle, or a handgun, but oh, by the way, you can't purchase tobacco. I've never had a cigarette in my life, so I'm not a pro-tobacco person, but it's a freedom thing. If they're an adult, if they're old enough to vote, they're old enough to serve this country, they're old enough to make a decision on tobacco. Please do not back this bill.
Further remarks? Was that Representative York? Did you speak once on this bill already?
I did.
All right, we're going to let some other people go first. Representative Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had the chance this past week to talk to many of the retailers, and they are not in favor of this bill. They don't sell to 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds. I mean, they do sell, but what they want is enforcement of what the current law is. What they're seeing here is they will sell to, say, a younger generation, and then they go out and give them. They want to stop these people from 18 to 21 from buying the cigarettes and giving them to the younger generation or selling them to the younger generation as soon as they get out the door. What they would like is just a better enforcement of the current law, not changing of it. Thank you.
Further remarks? I think Representative York wants to speak for a second time, so what we're going to do, unless anyone else wants to speak, we're going to go to Representative York for a second time, and then we'll close. Representative Roden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Well, a lot of my points have been made, and I won't belabor them. But I've seen a lot of debates on this floor in years past dealing with smoking. You know, we took property rights away by banning public smoking in public buildings. We've taken a lot of steps. We see a lot of legislation this year that chisel away from our individual rights and represent an expansion of government. Call it what it is. That's exactly what it is. If we believe in individual rights, and I've said it 100 times, the counterbalance in our country to the great freedoms and liberties and the individual rights that we enjoy are counterbalanced by personal responsibility. So where are we at today? Once again, we're trying to chisel another matter of personal responsibility away. So if we're going to be honest about this, if we're saying that it has such a high cost to society, then let's have a straight up honest debate about outlawing tobacco, period. Let's not chisel away inch by inch. Let's have an honest and full debate. I'd urge your opposition to House Bill 1250.
Further remarks? Representative Freimuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. My parents would always say to us girls, you can make smart decisions or you can make stupid decisions, but they're your choices and yours to live with.
We'd like to meet your parents someday. All right. Further remarks? Representative York for a second time, then Representative Heineman for a second time.
I don't disagree with anything that anybody said, and I certainly do believe in freedoms. But I also believe, and we hear it all the time, freedom is not free. And you know who's paying for these freedoms of the bad choices of smoking, drinking, and all the other things? We are. We're struggling to find Medicaid dollars to pay for all the health care costs that people's freedoms are leading them to all these bad choices and bad health care. So if you want to continue paying for it, then let's just keep on doing what we're doing. Otherwise, we can try and make some headroads in people to start making better choices about their health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing remarks, Representative Heineman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, body, for having this robust discussion. I appreciate that. I was thinking with Representative from Kyle's comments, yeah, I could too indulge in this. This is adding money to my bottom line by not passing this. If we continue with the tobacco process, I mean, the 18 to 20-year-olds are the fastest growing user of the tobacco in our country, the fastest growing. And you know what? How many high schoolers are 18 years old? Think about that. Those 18-year-olds are in high school, and they're buying tobacco products for their friends in high school. That's a pretty stark discovery, in my opinion. So, yeah, great. I'd love to see tobacco more. I mean, gum disease is one of the biggest issues I deal with on an everyday basis. This just contributes to that, especially smokeless tobacco. So, I guess the point I'm getting at is I can be selfish and say, I don't like this idea, but I can say here, I support this from a public health point of view. You can go through all the different arguments about the military. I have statements in your handout that you have that the military adamantly opposes allowing 18 to 21-year-olds having tobacco because of the issues they have with military readiness when they're leaving. They adamantly support this idea. I addressed the question of possession. That's not an issue from the previous speaker. And I guess I would urge you to support this. So please vote green on House Bill 1250. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know this has went long enough, but I have to remark about the military. If any of you ever been in the military, there's a rank structure. So I'm sure some self-righteous general decided that we shouldn't have tobacco in the military. But I can assure you the rank and file do not feel that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll close now. Seeing no further remarks, question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1250. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Yes. Representative Rounds.
Mr. Speaker, House Commerce and Energy will be meeting in 60 seconds in the Speaker's lobby. Thank you.
Yep, and as soon as those Commerce and Energy Committee members have voted, you can head on over into the Speaker's lobby for that meeting.
Representative DeSanto. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
There are yeas, 21 nays, 45, and excused 4.
House Bill 1250, having failed to receive a majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared failed.
House Bill 1278, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the extradition of fugitives by Indian tribes.
House Bill 1278, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks?
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Diedrich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this bill comes to you as a result of collaboration and cooperation between tribal and non-tribal law enforcement. This relates to the extradition of prisoners from non-tribal back to the tribal law enforcement. That could happen under this bill when the tribe requests that the extradition be made, that they have a copy of the active warrant, that the person who is in custody off tribal land has committed a crime on the tribal land, and that they have, or either that or they've violated a sentence or a parole or a probation to escape prosecution on the tribal land. What this does, it allows the tribe to request from, for example, the Pennington County Jail, the transfer of prisoner back to the tribe so that they can follow through with their law enforcement activities with that individual. The request has to be approved by the Attorney General. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Further remarks? House Bill 1278. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1278. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Okay, we're going to be at ease for a minute.
Duval votes aye. And Turbeville votes aye.
Just excuse him. Okay, we're going to return from being at ease.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 52, excused 18.
House Bill 1278, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. Okay, we need to, May is out. She's on the committee. Yep. There being no objection, we're going to revert to order of business number 5, reports of standing committees. We didn't have those committee reports ready earlier because the committee meetings ran late.
The Committee on Government Operations and Audit respectfully reports that House Bill 1178 and 1188 do pass as amended. House Bill 1187 and 1316 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, Jean Hunhoff, Chair. Also, the House Committee on Appropriations respectfully reports that Senate Bill 55 do pass and be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1266 and 1300 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, David L. Anderson, Chair. Also, the Committee on Education respectfully reports that Senate Bill 46 do pass as amended. House Bill 1303 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, Timothy R. Johns, Chair. Also, the Committee on State Affairs respectfully reports that House Bill 1162 do pass. House Bill 1319 do pass. House Joint Resolution 1004 and House Bill 1174 do pass as amended. House Bill 1132 recommendation that bill be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, and House Bill 1312 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, Larry Roden, Chair. Also, the Joint Committee on Appropriations respectfully reports that House Bill 1118 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, David L. Anderson, co-chair. Also, the Committee on Judiciary respectfully reports that House Bill 1209 and 1292 do pass and be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1293, 1204, and 1204 do pass as amended, and House Bill 1189, 1228, 1260, and 1290 be deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, Mike Stevens, Chair. Also, the Committee on Commerce and Energy respectfully reports that House Bill 1164 be tabled. House Bill 1287 and 1301 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Respectfully submitted, Tim Rounds, Chair. Also, Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared House Bill 1074 and finds the same correctly enrolled. Respectfully submitted, G. Mark Mickelson, Chair.
There being no objection, the House will proceed back to order of business number 13, second reading of House bills. There being no objection, we're going to go ahead and take House Bill 1166 next, and then we'll come back to 1268. Any objections? Seeing none, let's proceed to House Bill 1166.
House Bill 1166, an act to revise certain provisions regarding waivers recommended by the School Finance Accountability Board.
House Bill 1166, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Howard, we went ahead and proceeded to order of business, House Bill 1166. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So 1166, basically in 2016, when they did the new funding formula for the schools, they created a School Finance Accountability Board. If a school does not meet the criteria for the funding formula in the funding formula bill, then they're notified in October by the Department of Education that they failed to meet that. If they choose to appeal the financial penalty, that goes to the School Finance Accountability Board. The School Finance Accountability Board has two jobs. They determine if they failed to meet the criteria set out in 13-13-73.6, and then they decide whether or not to give a waiver of the financial penalty to the schools. If they choose to give a waiver, that waiver then currently goes to the Joint Committee on Appropriations, and by statute right now, that committee only has the authority to approve. This bill would basically give the Joint Committee on Appropriations the ability to approve, deny, or amend the waiver given by the board. And all decisions by the Joint Committee on Appropriations are final, and that would not change. So I would ask for your favorable consideration of this bill.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question for the body is final passage of House Bill 1166. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Carr.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
I just thought I'd point out here, I got a lot of stuff, but I got this nice gift, a Valentine's gift from my very special lady. And I was looking at your desk and I noticed nothing. There's nothing. No Valentine there. So who's doing it right?
Taylor, why don't you go to the office and get my little present I got today so you can show Representative Carr what I got. Hey, say hello to your special lady from all of us, Representative Carr.
Representative John votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 54, nays 8, and excused 8.
House Bill 1166, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1268, an act to provide for revised dates to pre-file legislation.
House Bill 1268, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I bring before the House House Bill 1268. This idea came to me this summer when I was working with LRC on some bills, and after we got working on some of them, I had to Mr. Speaker, what a present. Wow.
Hey, we'll save that for a bill vote. Go ahead and unplug that.
Where do you hang that at exactly?
Let's send her back to training.
I'm sure it's in the bathroom. Should I get back to House Bill 1268? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Boy, I'm going to have a hard time talking about a pre-file legislation bill. So anyway, I bring back House Bill 1268 to your attention. And oh my God. Can we recess, please?
All right, we're going to be at ease for a little bit, all right? Representative Dennert.
Kind of a personal privilege just to burn
Granted.
some time. I'd like to introduce to the House a friend of mine, Amber Matson from Aberdeen, her 2 daughters.
All right, please welcome them.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, ready to go.
All right, we're back.
House Bill 1268, pre-file legislation bill that I thought of this summer when I was working with the LRC on some other legislation. And once we got it done, I was like, well, I wonder who the opposition will be. And so started reaching out to different people and agencies and trying to get some take on it. And I saw how busy LRC was with all their bills and drafts and getting all of us 105 organized on our bills. And so we talked about it and we thought, you know, on off years when we're not running for office, it would be helpful if we could file these in July, and then it would give everybody a chance to read them online. And then the opposition, when there is opposition, it would be a little more easy for us to maybe work through some of the amendments and some of the problems long before we get here. So I went ahead and drafted up the bill, and it came out of committee, out of State Affairs. I think there was one vote against it, but I'm not for sure why he voted against it. Anyway, some of the questions that came up, well, how do you know, what about the sign-up sheet? Well, we can file now on December 1st, and so the sign-up process really isn't the point of it. And like LRC said, you know, in the digital world, we're starting to get to that point where that is going to be something that we will have the capability of doing down the road. So I just think it's a good bill. It's a good bill for all of us. It's a good bill for all the people in LRC that work so hard on our drafting our bills and helping us work through the process. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Further remarks? Yep, Representative Rounds.
I have a question for the sponsor.
Go ahead.
If we can draft legislation for this bill starting on a specific date, can we also start withdrawing bills a lot earlier? I mean, if you have a second thought on that piece of legislation, can you withdraw it?
Representative May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think that that would change this. I think that if you worked through the process and there was just too much opposition and you couldn't get it lined out, I have no reason why you couldn't continue with that process. So.
Anything further? See no further remarks. The question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1268. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote.
Gosh votes aye. Turbeville votes aye. Lust votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 64, nays 2, and excused 4.
Representative Marty, do you feel under duress?
How do we do that? How do we do that?
House Bill 1268, having received the majority vote of the members elected, is hereby declared passed. Representative Marty does want to change his vote, as does Representative Rounds wants to change his vote.
Marty votes yea. Rounds votes yea. Mr. Speaker, the new vote. 66 yeas and excused 4.
Yep, we got it. We already did that. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1241, an act to establish an annual fee for certain electric motor vehicles and electric hybrid motor vehicles.
House Bill 1241, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Duval.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. House Bill 1241 comes to you not to be capricious or not to be punitive, but it comes because of a sense of fairness. The biggest source of revenue for our state highway fund is the fuel tax. Every time someone in South Dakota pulls up to a gas station and they fill their vehicle with gas or diesel, they pay 28 cents per gallon fuel tax that goes directly into the state highway fund. And that money is constitutionally protected to take care of maintaining roads in the state and take care of bridges in the state. Now, according to the Federal Highway Administration, the average South Dakota driver travels just over 11,000 miles per year. If you drive a vehicle that gets 30 miles per gallon, you're paying $104.44 every year to help take care of roads and bridges. If you drive something that gets 20 miles per gallon, you pay $156.52 every year to the highway fund to take care of roads and bridges. I did some quick calculations, and the Duvals pay close to $200 a year to take care of roads and bridges. However, electric vehicles are not contributing to the fuel tax to help pay for the infrastructure that they are using. So this bill proposes putting an annual fee of $100 on an electric vehicle every year to go directly to the state highway fund to help take care of roads and bridges. And we're also proposing a $50 per year fee for electric hybrids. I think that this is something that is really timely right now. We talked about this concept a few years ago when we did the major highway funding overhaul. And at that time, electric vehicles were retailing for $100,000 plus. However, technology has changed. And now we have electric cars that start in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. So I expect that we will see more of them on the highways. There's also an electric truck that will be coming out. It is able to travel at highway speeds for up to 600 miles on a single charge. So we're going to see more of these electric vehicles on the state's highway. So I would suggest that 1241 is just a small step to make sure the electric vehicles are contributing to the infrastructure that they are using. And with that, I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand the issues with road maintenance, and actually I agree with the previous speaker, but this bill's the wrong solution to this problem. Paying less for gas, you don't contribute as much for maintaining our roads. But we've singled out electric cars and hybrids. Okay, they've increased fuel efficiency in hybrids. Well, there's other places that we've increased fuel efficiency. And as our fuel efficiency standards rise, we're getting less money in taxes. That's true. But there's also a TDI engine that Volkswagen makes that, gets over 50 miles to the gallon, which is much like the Prius that gets 50 miles to the gallon. And we put aluminum in our truck bodies now so they're lighter instead of steel, and those get, a few miles better per gallon. And so why are we selecting one technology for fuel savings and charging them more. Maybe we have to look at how we're funding our roads or where this tax is or how we do that, but I don't think we should pick a technology and say that that technology is the one we're going with. I know you don't normally hear it from this side of the chamber, but this is an example of unnecessary government intervention in the market. Once again, I understand the need for funding our roads, but this bill is not the right solution.
Further remarks? Representative Jensen.
I know I promised, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know yesterday I promised not to speak. The only thing I'd ask you to consider is the electric cars are paying electric taxes to the cooperatives, and if they live in the country, they're paying probably a lot more for their electricity than they would be for the road tax.
Further remarks? Representative Roden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I too shouldn't be getting up, but my wife's here, and so I want her to think I actually do something while I'm in here. Just a couple brief comments. First of all, even the electric cars do pay into the highway fund through their excise tax, okay, for starters. Second, on the hybrids, a lot of the hybrids, when they're running on gas, some of them only get 13 miles a gallon. So I'd suggest that they're paying also, especially when you compare them to some of the high fuel economy in some of the other cars, as was stated earlier. But I would also remind you that out of over 900,000 cars on the highways in South Dakota, less than 150 of them are electric cars. And yet this represents a $250,000 tax increase. I think it's the wrong direction. I think they're looking at this from the wrong direction, and I would urge your opposition to 1241. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Duvall for closing remarks. Okay, go ahead, Representative Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the body. A few things. First of all, when we talk about truck bodies getting lighter and getting better gas mileage, if they're lighter, they're putting less wear and tear on the highway. So it's kind of a self-leveling aspect there. When we talk about electric taxes, none of those go to the state roads and bridges. And the third thing I would say is that the excise tax argument ignores the fact that over half of the money in our state highway fund comes from the fuel tax, not the excise tax. I would also point out that the excise tax argument probably had some merit when these cars were selling for $100,000 plus. But now they're selling for $20,000 to $30,000. So it's a nice argument, but I think that really that is not an argument for inertia on this bill. And I would again ask for your support. Thank you.
Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1241. All those members in favor will vote yes. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. This is a 2/3 vote due to the fee increase.
Representative Hunhoff. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 35, nays 30, excused 5.
House Bill 1241, having failed to receive the 2/3 vote of the members elect, is hereby declared failed.
House Bill 1114, an act to establish certain requirements for students enrolling in resident school districts or assigned schools after participating in open enrollment.
House Bill 1114, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Steinauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a simple bill that's trying to encourage better communication and planning for your school districts. Basically, what we're dealing with here is when a student has open enrolled to a district other than their residential district, the assumption is after they've completed a year of school there that they'll remain at that district. There's no provision today that they are required to notify their residential district if they want to return. And this becomes a problem for some districts, as it has one of mine, where you've got a classroom of third graders and you're trying to decide, do I split it into 2 classes or not? And all of a sudden you've got some people showing up on the first day that had they just made notification, they could have planned more appropriately. So what this bill does is if you've got a student returning after open enrolling to something other than their residential district, that they notify this school district that they're returning to by August 1st. After August 1st, the district has an opportunity to do a thumbs up or thumbs down. Now, let me say this about that. Working with the Association of Consolidated School Boards, I might not have that title right, they, as well as myself, can't see an instance really where a district would turn them down. But what we're really trying to do is facilitate better communication and planning. Please help me in supporting the bill.
Further remarks? Yeah, Representative Brunner. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the problem being just what you just said, in that if they can't turn them down, what good is this bill? If it goes back, if they do turn them down, obviously you've got children that are school age that have nowhere to go to school. And if they can't turn them down, then what's the purpose of this bill?
Representative Steinauer, do you wish to answer that question?
Sure do. Thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. It's not intended to be heavy-handed in that regard, but I think when you open enroll to another district, you would be notified that if you choose to return, please let us know. So it facilitates the conversation and the notification.
The floor remains yours, Representative Brunner.
Well, that's kind of a problem because, you know, a lot of things happen in August with families. Things change, jobs change, careers change, people's health situation changes, and all of a sudden you've got now a real concern that you've got to appear before the school board and ask to come back to your home school district. I think that's very unnecessary legislation. I would just ask that we put it to sleep.
Further remarks, Representative Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I see it more as a help for the teachers because maybe they are short of books and they would need to order more. So that just gives them some type of account to take so that when their first day of school opens, they're not scrambling at the last minute to try to find an extra book or two, and then it sets the child on N2 because then he feels like, well, gee, I must be intruding, there's not enough books, and then it escalates from there. So I think this is a good bill. I think it's worth a try, and most of the people know where they're going by the first part of August. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1114. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members shall proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 50, nays 14, and excused 6.
House Bill 1114, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1255, an act to revise the authority of the Interim Rules Review Committee to revert a rule to any step in the rules adoption process.
House Bill 1255, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Hunoff.
I would like to defer to the good representative for Lawrence County for an amendment.
Okay, Representative Johns.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have an amendment. It's 1255 DA, which has been distributed.
And you wish to move it at this time?
I do.
Go ahead and discuss the amendment in the bill if you need to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the chamber. We're looking at the authority of the Interim Rules Review Committee. This is this bill calls for a reversion of a proposed rule that comes before the Interim Rules Committee. So I want to go through with you a little bit what authority actually the Interim Rules Review Committee has. It's found in our statute, which is SDCL 1-26-4.9. The interim, and I'll quote, the Interim Rules Review Committee may, 1, declare that the rulemaking process is complete to the satisfaction of the committee. 2, revert the rule to an earlier step in the rule adoption procedure pursuant to SDCL Section 1-26-4.7 to consider an amendment to the proposed rule. Or 3, the move to suspend the proposed rule pursuant to Section 1-26-38. The statute as presented proposes to revert certain matters that come before the committee when it respects the scope of a benefit program which provides for the expansion of that program that had not been previously submitted to the legislature. The proposed amendment, since we're talking about a fiscal matter, then the proposed amendment would just provide, after the word legislature, on line 13, at the end of that sentence, it would further read, quote, in which case the committee can require as a condition of the reversion that the proposed rule be considered and approved by the Joint Appropriations Committee, end of quote. The reason for the proposed amendment is that we can have a second look at it so the legislature can make a decision as to whether that is an appropriate expenditure or use of our state resources. And at this point, I would defer to the sponsor of the bill.
Very good. Representative Hunoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative. You did an excellent example of how this works. Just as a short term here, and I will say that the representative has served on the committee and has been chair in the past. The intent of interim rules is to look and make sure that the process for the public to have an understanding and input in any new rules that are a result from a statute that need to be promulgated or any changes in existing rules, have that hearing and have that input and have a thorough process. And then they come to the Rules Committee. And as was indicated, there are reasons that we can revert that back to a prior step. And what that means, we can stop that rule from being implemented within 20 days of our meeting. So it's a stopgap to get this rule that might have a fiscal impact back to joint appropriations so that they can hear about this and identify is it or not. What has happened is this, and this is just one example, but in December we had a meeting and one of the departments was not expanding the dollars. They were using existing dollars, but it only covered one segment of a population. And because they had dollars that were not going to be used for that one segment of the population that they served, they decided to expand it to cover another segment of the population that was in the program. There was really no way to stop this from occurring. The implications, there was no further expenditure of those dollars, but we were opening it up to another group that wasn't previously covered. Now, in the next fiscal year, that could have an impact. So again, we couldn't do anything to stop it. So what this would do then, stopgap it and say, no, we want you to revert it back, take it back to joint appropriations and present it there. I think the argument from the departments or the agencies will be, well, that's next session. No, interim rules committee or joint appropriations meets over the summer. I mean, we meet every month and then we come into session. So there's plenty of time, and it can be very timely that they can get a report back and they just come to joint appropriations and they would say, yep, that's okay. And then it would come back to interim rules at next meeting. We'd approve it and the process would be complete. So it's just a stopgap so we can make sure that if an agency is expanding, we can have some review of it prior to implementing that rule. I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Further remarks? We do have a pending amendment, and perhaps it makes sense for us to put the amendment on the bill and then continue the debate. Go ahead, Representative Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, question for the bill sponsor or the sponsor of the amendment. I'm a little fuzzy here. So, if we're off session, are we saying that any rule then doesn't have to have the approval of the legislature, just has to have the approval of the Joint Appropriations Committee? Am I understanding that correctly?
It's probably directed at Representative. Yeah, go ahead, Representative Hanoff.
Thank you. No, the departments have the authority to promulgate rules all the time. We've given that, and if the bill says that. This is only in relation if we were expanding a program, if there was something different. But, you know, another agency can come in and they're not expanding, they're just doing their normal rule process. But this is specific so that we can check to make sure that that expansion or the coverage or whatever they're doing, because it's revenue, it indicates that's the only reason. So no, every rule does not. It would only be if a department was doing something with some fiscal impact that it would have to go back. And it may not have to. We may be satisfied, but it gives us the opportunity to send it to joint appropriations. Does that answer your question?
Still
Representative
fuzzy.
Pischke.
I'm still fuzzy, but I'm going to listen to debate.
Yeah, you might ask her the question, what's the rule now if you don't pass this bill?
That would be appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's the rule now if we don't pass this amendment? Well, as the bill is written, how would it work then without the amendment?
Just like it did in December, we couldn't stop the coverage of these people. We just said, yep, we can't, we have no authority to revert that rule back, so it went through.
Okay. One additional question?
Yes, go ahead.
Is the prime sponsor in the Senate aware of this amendment and okay with it?
No, I didn't talk to the prime sponsor over that, but it's giving us the authority to do that. He sits on the committee with us. The prime sponsor in the Senate is a member of our Interim Rules Committee. He was at the December meeting when we had the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Latterell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a follow-up question for the sponsor of this bill. I believe the question I still have isn't on the bill. Previous speaker and I both support the bill. But this particular amendment, does this amendment change so that the joint appropriations can approve the rule and we don't have to wait until the legislature meets? What's the substantive change?
I think the question is, are you taking authority away from the legislature and giving it to the joint appropriations on the, is that the question they're getting at? Representative Hanoff.
Thank you for the question. I guess what I'm asking for is not, but they can review it, and then if there would be a problem or they would say something, then they could come back to us and say, we think we need to go back to a prior step, and that would maybe then bring it back to the legislature. But again, in this case, there was no exchange of dollars. It was existing, but we were expanding the coverage to another population. They could make that decision, and that is, you know, the intent is we're not looking at expanding services, so the appropriations can say, you know, that's an expansion, they could come to the next meeting, or the communication would be, we don't think you should approve that rule, and they would direct us then, the interim rules committee. It has to come back one way or the other.
Further remarks? Representative Johns for a second time. Anyone else? Representative Johns.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, for clarification, it's giving the legislature some say on this that we wouldn't otherwise have. So we're going to give the say where it belongs with joint appropriations. Otherwise, it goes back, and then it can come back right up again to the interim rules, and there's nothing they can do about it. I want to give the legislature some say over these things when they come up, you know, in the interim when we're not in session. That's what it does. It's a good deal.
Got it. Thank you. Seeing no further remarks on the amendment, all those members in favor of adopting Amendment 1255 DA, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries. Further remarks on 1255 is amended.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Rounds.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the sponsor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 2, line 12, is there a definition for a benefits program?
Mr. Speaker?
Go ahead.
You know, I had LRC draft this, and if we looked at the programs that are out there through the benefits program, I can't say there is or there isn't. I guess that would be, if you're raising the question. It's a program that's a benefit to a segment of our population, our citizens.
Anything further? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1255 is amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Steinhauer? Granted.
I want to bring to the body's attention early notification. Next week, Wednesday, we have a former member of this body, back in the late 80s, early 90s, Representative Mike Wagner, is going to be here speaking about his knowledge about healthcare. He's an international consultant on healthcare. In fact, I believe he's in Australia right now. He was in Saudi Arabia last week. He travels the globe consulting with healthcare organizations, and as such, has an interesting perspective on what goes on in the world and how do we deliver healthcare. If Medicaid ever comes back to the state in block grants, we got a lot of heavy lifting to do. We have opportunities to attend NCSL conferences and learn about what's going on in other states. He's got a perspective about what's going on around the world, and having been a legislator, he can help us figure out how it might apply here. So next Wednesday, after both chambers recess, there'll be an opportunity to hear from former Representative Mike Wagner.
Representatives Bordeaux and Johnson. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 60, nays 4, and excused 6.
House Bill 1255 is amended, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1271, an act to revise certain provisions regarding the carrying of certain guns on certain premises.
House Bill 1271, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Brunner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've had a request to be brief, so I will heed that request. 1271 really doesn't change any law, it just clarifies it. It's brought to my attention when we have people out there, a person in particular brought to my attention that he He teaches security details and how to set up security details in churches, private schools. There was a little bit of doubt as to whether the private schools were indeed not considered a gun-free zone. And in consulting with the Attorney General and some others, we thought that there a little bit of clarity in this area of law was probably in order. And if you look at the first page on the bill, basically it adds a little bit of cleanup, but it adds in public elementary and secondary school functions. Those are areas that are definitely considered gun-free zones. And the second page, it lists those that would not be considered a gun-free zone and not part of that law: firing ranges, gun shows, school sessions, ceremony color guards, non-public schools, church, or any non-public school located in the premises of a church. So I think this just makes it abundantly clear that these areas are not considered gun-free zones. They are private property, however, and people certainly have the right to make rules for their own property and enforce those rules. And I think this just makes abundantly clear a section of law that maybe need a little bit of clearing up. So thank you.
Further remarks on House Bill 1271? Seeing no further remarks, the question for the body is final passage of House Bill 1271. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Yeah, maybe when we're done with, after Qualm makes his motion, we'll, because I think we're going to revert to order business number 5, reports of standing committees, then we can move to order business number 8, motions, and have the motion to suspend the rules for May's commemoration. Have you been talking to Jackie a little bit? No, but we'll have a motion to suspend the rules. Yeah, you got that motion? Okay.
Representative Browns. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there was 57 yeas, 7 nays, and 6 excused.
House Bill 1271, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1109, an act to provide for parole eligibility and early final discharge for certain inmates.
House Bill 1109, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, this bill's a little more complicated than the last one. It creates a system of compassionate parole for penitentiary inmates. This was amended in the House Judiciary Committee using concepts of the original bill and then merging them with existing parole systems. This would allow compassionate parole consideration for seriously ill or infirm inmates and aged inmates, allowing parole considerations before their normal parole date. This is patterned after the current medical clemency, medical case management process with the Department of Corrections, Department of Health. A warden or medical provider would refer the inmate to the Secretary of Corrections for compassionate parole consideration. The Secretary would refer the inmate to the Board of Pardons and Paroles for consideration. The board will hold a discretionary compassionate parole hearing. If the board doesn't grant the parole, the inmate will be scheduled for parole hearing at least annually. A decision to grant a compassionate parole will be a discretionary decision of the board. No inmate is entitled to be considered for compassionate parole or granted compassionate parole. Those released on compassionate parole will be subject to the supervision and revocation statutes that currently exist for inmates on regular parole. An inmate can't be released to compassionate parole if they meet the eligibility requirements of a medically indigent person. The release plan must address arrangements for medical care. If an inmate is considered for or released on compassionate parole. The same victim notice provisions are as regular parole apply, including the right to provide an input at the discretionary parole hearing, notice of parole or notice of discharge, and notice of return to custody. There was a few questions in committee having to do with the health aspects of this, and in no way does this ever intended to put persons back out on the street to be indigents in care of the county. That's a priority of this bill, and would offer to answer any questions, but very simple bill in that respect, and we look at it also to be a great savings monetarily to the state, and then somewhere around 75 inmates would be probably eligible for this compassionate parole. So in looking at some of those up to $200,000 a year in medical costs, just do the math, and it'd be a great savings. So we'll just ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Diedrich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A question for the sponsor.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask the sponsor as to how the funding is going to occur for the medical care of these released prisoners, and how will it be guaranteed to continue?
Representative Bruner, do you wish to answer that?
Sure. Well, it does say in the bill that they would have to be cared for either IHS, or the VA, on Medicaid, Medicare, and or private insurance or self-pay arrangements. So I know when you go on Medicare, there is some question as to how that would work, and we're not exactly sure that yet. We're certainly maybe looking at smoothing that out a little bit if it gets to the Senate, because there is still a little bit of question there. But by and large, if they go on parole, they're obviously not released immediately. They're going to have to make those arrangements, and they will be made and in place before they're released. So I think there's ample time to make sure that that prisoner is taken care of. And once they're out, obviously, yeah, you could. I'm not sure how. I guess if the VA is taking care of you, you're going to be taken care of for the rest of your life. The other issues, Medicare, obviously, if you're on that, once you're on that, you're on it for the rest of your life. So I don't see that as a real issue. If there are some suggestions, we're looking forward to possibly some amendments, like I say, when we get to the Senate, that would maybe smooth that out and guarantee that public will not be held responsible for these individuals. The other thing that I might add, that some of these severely ill individuals would probably be dollars ahead if the state did pay for them for their care outside, in instances of maybe going to a patient with severe dementia that takes 24-hour care by a person, would probably be better off in a nursing home and be cheaper for the state to pay for their care. But nonetheless, the bill states that they have to be, those arrangements have to be in place before they'll be released on parole, and I have to trust if they can't get those worked out that they will not be released.
Further remarks, Representative Diedrich?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. A further question then for the sponsor. Related to that release, will these persons be released simply because they may qualify for these programs, or will they be released once they are enrolled in these programs and there's some sort of a guarantee that they will continue to remain enrolled? And the reason for the question is talking to the counties and talking to caregivers, there's a question about the cost shift rather than a cost savings. And counties have some concern about having very seriously ill people who may be in their county, and they're going to have to pay for the care.
That was a question, I think, in there directed at you, Representative Bruner.
Would you repeat, maybe clarify? I know the question up front was there. Would you repeat it?
Mr. Speaker?
Go ahead.
Is there a mechanism to guarantee that someone who is eligible for payment for their health care beyond what the state provides while they're in prison, is there a mechanism to guarantee that they are enrolled and continue enrollment as long as they're released, so that the county doesn't incur those expenses?
Well, they simply wouldn't be released. If the care isn't there and guaranteed to be there, they simply will not be released. I mean, that's part of the bill. No matter how sick they are, if there's nobody to care for them outside, they're not going to be released.
Anything further, Representative Diedrich? You may comment. Time, yep, clock's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a concern. IHS is notorious for not paying the bills that they incur throughout not only South Dakota but throughout the nation. The other concern is a release. If someone is released in a compassionate parole, the compassion means that they continue with care and treatment. And if they are released and they don't have a funding mechanism to continue that care and treatment, then they become possibly homeless. Then they become the subject of collection activities. Then they become wards of the counties, perhaps. And those are just the concerns that are out there. And so it's my understanding that there may be some amendments for this bill, but I haven't received any assurance of that from the sponsor. I'm just expressing some of the concerns I've heard from our constituents.
Yeah, very good. Further remarks? Who's talking to me? Representative Hunoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I would ask you to support this bill. I've not been involved directly with the bill, but I have been through the appropriations process and working with the Department of Social Services and with corrections on trying to find alternatives for taking care of these individuals, because that was alluded to by the sponsor of the bill. Those costs are very excessive, and they continue to escalate, and so we need to look at some options. This is patterned after some of the programs that have been out there. Is it perfect and going to provide the answer? No. But I think it's a project that we need to start on, keep this bill moving. I think to address the representative from Pennington County, in Section 4, it talks about that an inmate would not be released on compassionate parole if they meet the eligibility requirements of a medically indigent person. Well, that means they're not going to let them leave that or get them out into a compassionate care program, because that would put the burden on the county, and that would be one thing that would not allow that to occur. And then it talks about they have to have a plan for a payer source once they leave that. I think the other thing to consider, in Sioux Falls, they do have a hospice program, and you all know what a hospice is, and they have quite a few of the inmates are in that. Inmates provide the care. But as, again, we have an aging population in the prison system, just like we all are aging, or if we have parents or grandparents, and we have to find alternatives. And so I think that's the intent. So this might be something we call work in progress. It has been shown to be successful in some other states that are implementing, and I think there's been good discussion and good questions raised that we can't provide the answers, but we have a way to get this over to the other side, continue. But I think the number one thing is we want to, certainly assure that it's the right person, that there's coverage that will provide them the health care once they leave the facility, but at the same time, how does that help us all in the overall correction systems for the cost of health care? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further remarks? Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was the one no vote in committee on this one, and I get the intent of the bill. I understand what we're trying to do. I suspect this will get out of here and go over to the Senate. I would hope that they look at some amendments. My biggest heartburn is with Section 1, subsection 4, which is the eligibility of folks who would be eligible for this compassionate parole, and they can have a conviction for a Class 1 felony or below. An example of a Class 1 felony is rape through the use of force. And for that reason, I voted no against it in committee. I'll vote against it here on the floor, frankly, because I don't have any compassion for a rapist who used force. I just wanted everybody to be clear where my no vote's coming from, and if they're going to die in jail, I'm okay with that. So, thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1109. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Rounds.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this afternoon, a member of this body, I'm not going to mention who it was, but his wife was in town and he had to get rid
Dinner
of
votes
that
aye.
little vein that sticks out in his neck, so he borrowed it to me. And as a result of that,
Peterson
I
votes aye.
had to comment on a smoke out earlier today, and I wasn't really pleasant when I did that, and I owe the representative from Pennington County an apology for how I handled that. So I sincere apologies on how I handled the smoke out discussion, and I hope it is accepted. Thank you.
Well, Representative Rounds, we all make mistakes. And earlier today, not only was I wrong, but he was right on the same issue, so it's a bad day today. Yeah.
Representative Sue Peterson. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 48, nays 17, and excused 5.
House Bill 1109, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1111, an act to revise certain definitions regarding criminal street gang activity.
Yes, House Bill 1111, having had second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Representative Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a voice vote, or voice amendment, excuse me.
Okay. Go ahead and state your amendment.
Page 2, line 2, first word of the sentence says grant. It should say grand, G-R-A-N-D, as in grand theft.
Okay, yeah, I think we've got that. Page 2, line 2, change the word grant to the word grand. Any, got an amendment and a second. Anyone wish that amendment to be reread? Discussion. Seeing none, all those members in favor of the voice amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Amendment carries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, as amended, seeks to improve the original legislation that was passed by the legislature in the early 1990s. Legislature recognized back then that there was a need for legislation targeted at criminal street gang activity in South Dakota. Utilization of our current laws is extremely difficult, if not impossible. The purpose of the original law was to allow for a reclassification of the penalty of a criminal defendant who is found guilty of a gang-related crime to the next higher penalty level if the defendant was a documented street gang member. While the original law was a step in the right direction, it has proven to be impractical in application for various reasons. House Bill 1111 seeks to remedy the problems with our current law by adding much-needed definitions that specify what gang activity is. It does this defining street gang activity as a specific list of crimes commonly committed by members of street gangs. This legislation also clarifies the definition of a street gang member, updates the criteria used to classify street gang members for the purposes of this section. These changes bring South Dakota's gang member identification criteria more in line with what is commonly used throughout the United States at both the state and federal levels, while also providing slight modifications that simplify formerly confusing language. It also accounts for changes that have taken place in this area since the 1990s, such as the role that social media plays in law enforcement investigations. Another key point that this legislation addresses is the need to remove the language that stated that crimes needed to be committed for the purpose of furthering gang activity. This language in the current law presented an incredible obstacle for law enforcement and prosecutors. It is nearly impossible in many cases to prove that a crime was committed for the purpose of furthering gang activity. This was the primary reason that the current law has not been able to be utilized. The current law could not be used without a gang member's admission to committing the crime in furtherance of their gang. Gang members commit crimes because they are gang members, and that is simply what they do. This is a mentality that they have. A gang member who was recently interviewed about numerous stolen vehicles, when asked why he was stealing the cars, his answer was simply, "It's what we do." He and the gang were not stealing cars to sell for profit or to benefit the gang. They were simply stealing because in their mindset, that is what gang members do. Removing in furtherance of gang activity language from the law and providing clear definitions for what gang activity is allows this law to function as it was originally designated. Another issue that has been noted across the state is the majority of police officers were not devoting their time and resources to properly document gang members in their community. The changes in this legislation should encourage all law enforcement officers to properly document gang members, as their efforts would now allow an offender's penalty to increase to the next penalty level. An example to illustrate this would be a gang member that commits a simple assault, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor. Under this law, the penalty can then be increased to a Class 6 felony once the subject is found guilty of the crime. I'm aware of some concerns that have been raised regarding certain changes made by this bill. The first issue was brought to my attention was the concern that this legislation was too broad and that innocent people could be charged as criminals under this statute. It is important to note that this law currently, or with the proposed changes, does not make being a member of a gang a crime. Only documented gang members of street gangs that have shown a pattern of engaging in criminal activity are impacted by this statute, and only after they have been found guilty of the initial crime that they committed. Another concern was that members of non-criminal groups or clubs could be found guilty by association. In an effort to alleviate those concerns, the current bill has been amended to remove certain language in the gang identification criteria, most notably the removal of language stating that residing in or frequenting a particular gang's area could be a gang identifier. It should also be noted that individuals need to meet 2 or more of the criteria to be classified as a gang member, and as previously stated, this statute only applies to those who have been found guilty of a crime. One further concern was that this legislation was making it easier to classify groups as street gangs. It should be noted that this legislation did not change the definition of a street gang as currently defined by state law or how gangs are commonly defined nationwide. If anything, this legislation has more properly defined what activity is considered to be a pattern of street gang activity. Under the current law, a pattern of street gang activity was defined as being the commission of 2 or more felony or violent misdemeanor offenses by any street gang member or members on separate occasions within a 3-year period. This would include offenses that are not necessarily gang-related, such as possessing controlled drugs. Under the proposed legislation, the crimes used to show the pattern of criminal activity would be the commission of 2 or more crimes that are specifically defined as street gang activity when committed by documented gang members. In summary, solutions presented in House Bill 1111 effectively target the most common types of crimes committed by known gang members, while enhancing the ability to successfully prosecute a gang penalty reclassification on these crimes. This should result in a deterrent effect for those seeking to engage in this type of activity, as well as bettering the quality of life in our communities by incarcerating those who seek to engage in this type of criminal activity. These changes, which have been thoroughly reviewed by various attorneys and law enforcement professionals throughout the state, will allow the current law to function as initially intended and should help to encourage officers to properly identify and document known gang members. This is supported by the Attorney General's Office, the South Dakota State's Attorneys Association, South Dakota Police Chiefs Association, Fraternal Order of Police, the Sioux Falls and Rapid City Police Departments, and the Midwest Gang Investigators Association, Dakota Chapter. Please vote yes on House Bill 1111. Thank you.
Further remarks? Representative Barthel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just quickly, I stand also in support of this bill. There's a lot of drugs that are in our state, obviously, and I think there's a majority of those drugs, there's a direct connection to out-of-state gang activity. There's no question that they're involved in a lot of that drug activity, and so this is just, I think, another tool, good deterrent to help keep them out of our state, and those that choose to come here, they're probably going to stay a little longer than they wanted to if they encounter this. So I urge your support. Thank you.
Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1111. All those members in favor shall vote aye. The question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1111 as amended. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote. Representative Tolson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're honored today to honor a guy. He's sitting up here. Will you, Chris, will you stand? Our House Republican intern. It's his birthday today, so what do you think? Should we sing to him?
Anderson votes aye.
How old is he?
21. 21.
Not
What's
good.
up? What's up tonight? You don't have to answer that.
Maybe smoking.
Okay, here we go on 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chris. Happy birthday to you. Thank you.
Yes, Representative Latterall.
Just wanted to applaud Chris for being an awesome intern this session and comment that now he's old enough to buy cigarettes.
Very good. We're going to start extra early tomorrow, aren't we?
Representatives DeSanto, Latterell, and Mickelson. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
What is that? Fine. Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are yeas 42, nays 22, excused 6.
House Bill 1111, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1106, an act to authorize hunting preference points to be granted to persons aged 10 years or older.
House Bill 1106, having had a second reading, is up for consideration and final debate. Are there any remarks? Representative Johnson.
Thank you. Well, it's pretty simple. It's in the first line. House Bill 1106 grants hunting preference points to persons aged 10 years and older. Now, currently, the age is 12 years, so we're moving it from 12 years to 10. Okay, so I do want to mention that this is Representative McPherson's bill. I'm going to fondly call it Sean's bill. It's the way it is. I fully realize that there are fairness issues involved in this. There are issues on both sides. They're very fair. They're very reasonable concerns. I respect it. The bottom line here is that what this bill is trying to do is to keep our youth involved, despite the many, many, many modern distractions in that great South Dakota tradition of big game hunting. That's all it is. I urge a green vote on Sean's bill.
Further remarks? Representative Goodwin.
Yeah, I rise also in support of this bill. It's set up so that they'll start getting preference points 2 years early. It went from 12 to 10. But it doesn't mean they're going to get an elk license next year. They might be on the list 10 or 12 years, but it's going to get them interested in the process. They can see what's going on. They can apply each year. I happen to be a mentored hunter for a young man that doesn't have a dad, and he would think this is great, just applying to see where he's at with his preference points. So I think it's a good bill for everybody. The future is our youth, as far as hunting goes in this state, so we'll get them more involved. I urge a green vote.
Further remarks? Seeing none, the question before the body is final passage of House Bill 1106. All those members in favor shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Duval votes aye. Mills votes aye. Roden votes aye. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 54, nays 10, and excused 6.
House Bill 1106, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved.
House Bill 1270, an act to adjust the period of time requiring the use of lighted front and rear lamps on motor vehicles.
Yes, House Bill 1270, having had a second reading, is up for consideration. Final debate. Representative Tolson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, everybody. Try to get this explained to you quickly. I bring House Bill 1270 to you. Now in state law, it says you must have your lights on from a half hour after sunset to a half hour before sunrise. That's what it is in state law right now. A half hour after sunset to a half hour before sunrise. What this bill says is that lights will have to be on from sunset to sunrise. The main deal with lights, you can see me with my lights on, but I probably can't see if you don't have your lights on. We need to use our lights whenever it's hard to see the other vehicle, especially at sunset and sunrise. Our boat laws say we must have lights on from sunset to sunrise. Let's do the same with vehicle lights. Many people in our state think we need this, as heard in testimony from two proponents. Many in our state thinks we should have our lights on all the time. This bill just says sunset to sunrise. So, as always, if you want to pay attention here, if you could let your light shine and be part of my team, I would appreciate your vote. So let me see the twinkle in your eyes. I need your green vote. Thank you.
Further remarks? See no further remarks. Question for the body is final passage of House Bill 1270. All those members in favor shall vote aye. Those opposed, no. Clerk will unlock the voting machine. The member shall proceed to vote.
Representatives Ketwig and May. Mr. Speaker, all members present have voted.
Madam Clerk, please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were yeas 44, nays 19, and excused 7.
House Bill 1270, having received the majority vote of the members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed approved. Representative Qualm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move we defer the remainder of the calendar till Thursday, February 15th, the 24th legislative day.
All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. That motion carries. There being no objection, we are going to revert to order of business number 5, reports of standing committees.
The Committee on Commerce and Energy respectfully reports that House Bill 1287 returns the same without recommendation as amended. Respectfully submitted, Tim Rounds, Chair.
Thank you. There being no objection, we will now proceed to order of business number 8, motions and resolutions.
Representative Quam moved that the rules be suspended for the sole purpose of introducing and reading and placing on today's calendar House Commemoration 1015.
Discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, please. We do need 2/3 on this, don't we? All in favor of suspending the rules for the sole purpose of considering the commemoration shall vote aye. All those members in favor of that shall vote aye. All those opposed, no. The clerk will unlock the voting machine. The members shall proceed to vote.
Give us a few minutes.
Oh, it's going to take us a minute. I'm going to allow just a little bit of discussion on that motion while we're waiting to vote. Representative, well, if we don't need any discussion, we're just going to turn this on. Better yet, does anyone object to this motion? If anyone objects, please stand. Seeing no objection, it's deemed to have a 2/3 vote because no one objected. We're going to proceed. That motion hereby is declared passed. Perfect. All right. I'm going to, at this time, there being no objection, we're going to proceed to we're going to allow Representative May to, a commemoration has been distributed. She does need to take this to a funeral tomorrow, and we need to get it out of here so that the Senate can consider it on tomorrow's calendar. Representative May, I'll go ahead and would you like to talk about that commemoration?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it would be appropriate. I'm going to have Representative Kaiser just go through it. He's a law enforcement officer, and I just think that it would be appropriate if he read the commemoration for me. Thank you.
You bet. Representative Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the body. I come to you today with this commemoration 1015 with a very heavy heart, honoring Officer Brian Garrett. And I'll just, for those of you who have not kept up in the papers, Officer Brian Garrett of the Oglala Lakota tribe was murdered in his duties as an officer on February 11th. And we find this to be a very good way to honor him in his service to his people. A legislative commemoration honoring Brian Garrett for his outstanding commitment and dedicated service to the Oglala Lakota people. Whereas Brian Garrett has served the Oglala Lakota people as a law enforcement officer for the Oglala Lakota Department of Public Safety for 10 years, and whereas Brian's dedicated service to the people of the Oglala Sioux tribe helped earn him the respect of the communities he served. Whereas Brian had a good sense of humor, which he used to get to know the people that he surrounded himself with. And whereas Brian passed away on Sunday, February 11th, 2018, in Kyle, South Dakota. Now therefore be it commemorated by the 93rd Legislature of the state of South Dakota that Officer Brian Garrett be recognized for his exceptional dedication and service to the Oglala Lakota people. Thank you.
Thank you. That commemoration will be recorded as being on today's calendar, unless any member wishes to object. Okay, thank you, Representative Kaiser and Representative May. Announcements. Yep, Representative Roden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House State Affairs will meet immediately after session today, 4:14. Thank you.
Thank you. The Speaker does declare that House Bills 1247, 1288, 1298, and 1299 have been withdrawn at the request of the prime sponsor pursuant to Joint Rule 6B-1-1. Representative Otten.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be no House Ag and Natural Resources meeting tomorrow morning. No representative, no meeting.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe about 10, maybe 12, possibly 13 minutes ago, we voted on something called, that I like to call Sean's bill. I'd like to point out that we just received a message from someone named Sean. The message is, thank you. Now, on to lighter things. The House Committee on Planes, Trains, and Automobiles will meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Representative May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I took the honor of taking a picture of the board for Representative McPherson and to show him who voted for it. Of course, he's already on me why I voted against his bill. I'll have to explain that to him later. He said, "Sweet, this legislating thing is easy."
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joint Approps will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and House Approps will meet at 10 a.m. in 464. Thank you.
Representative Haugard.
House Tax will meet tomorrow morning, 7:45.
Representative Steinauer.
I'm sure it's a huge disappointment, but no Health and Human Services tomorrow.
Representative Shane Fish.
House Local Government will meet at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes, Representative Bartlett.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I can speak on behalf of the ladies of the House that we'd like to thank the majority party leadership for the roses on our desk. It certainly feels really wonderful to be loved by so many. Thank you.
Thank you. They've got good staff. Representative Pischke. We got a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries. Oh, two things. Kitty Worthman has a presentation in room session in 15 minutes, and certain provisions regarding the creation of business improvement districts.